Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. This video is covering if alt accounts are worth it, whether you have 2, 4, 6, 8 or even more, or just one extra alt account. So grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax and enjoy. So what exactly is an alt account for the people that do not know? An alt account is actually a secondary account. You can also call an alt account a noob account. Now this is not just a thing in Runescape, but usually people in RPG games or maybe a game like World of Warcraft have an alternative account. And that account is usually used to benefit a main account. Now that's out of the way, let's move on to the next section. Should you make an alt account? Now this is really dependent on a few things. You should really be asking yourself the following questions before making an alt account. How much time are you actually willing to sacrifice to train this account? Because usually speaking, straight off the bat, a level 3 account with no stats trained whatsoever is pretty useless. So you first have to train up the account's skills. Also, how much money are you willing to invest in the alt account? Whether that's bonds for membership or money to train up skills. That costs money. Except if you're training a skill that does not cost money and makes money from level 1 on, well, that's a different story. Also, are you willing to multilog often? This is a very important one because multilogging is not only something entirely new for some players, but it's also pretty hard to do if you're focusing too much on one account or you're very bad at multitasking. Now, another thing is that if you aren't able to multilog, you shouldn't even be watching this video. Well, you could watch the video, but there's no point. If you have a very old laptop, for example, there's no way you're going to be running 2 RuneScape clients smoothly or pleasantly, so you're better off not doing that. That's another question you should be asking yourself before you get started on an alt account. And the most important one of all is, will you be enjoying this playstyle? Now, I used to multilog a lot back in the day, not necessarily to benefit my main account, but more so to show off multiple capes on multiple accounts in free-to-play. Now, multilogging is actually pretty tiring even if you're AFKing on one or even both clients, or if you're running multiple clients. It just has something to do with clicking twice as much, basically doing twice the amount of actions, and keeping those clients running and not doing nothing, which is pretty much pointless if you're AFKing too hard or just focusing too much on one client. Next up is time versus profit. Now, I'm assuming you are going to be training or using an alt using bonds, which cost in-game GP so that you do not have to pay real-life money for membership. A bond currently is around 19.5 million GP, meaning you would have to make 1.4 million a day to break even, without making any profit whatsoever, or 2.8 million every 2 days, etc. Now, making 1.4 million GP per hour, aka 1 hour a day, is not really that hard on a decent alt account. Even a low level one, it's quite easy to actually make 1.4 million an hour in RuneScape 3. I will be covering many alt money making methods later on in the video. Now, another thing you should keep in mind, are you able to play enough hours to break even and make profit on that alt account? To break even at 1.4 mil GP per hour, you'd have to play 7 hours per week. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but some people that do play RuneScape do work a lot of hours every week and may not have the time to do this. Now, before we get into the alt money making methods, I quickly want to go over the benefits of an alternative account. So the first is you can have twice the amount of Grand Exchange offer slots. This can be extremely useful for flipping, merching, or just buying a lot of stuff in bulk over time, especially if you have a main account that needs a various amount of skilling supplies. The next is also something that has to do with the Grand Exchange. You can actually bypass the Grand Exchange limits, again with flipping or with skilling supplies, as you can buy twice the amount per 4 hours or whatever the buy limit is. Now, an alt mainly is used for making money, to benefit the main account like previously mentioned. Now, you have active and passive income. Active income, as an example, is AFKing your main while focusing on your alt making money. An example could be Frost Dragons. It could be anything that is not AFK, or even a bossing alt. Now, passive income is when you're focusing on your main but AFKing your alt. An example of this could be you're doing something on your main like high intensity skilling, which is very click intensive, and at the same time you're chopping elder logs for money on your alternative account. You can also use your alt as a pack mule, bringing your main supplies or skilling items without your main actually leaving the area it is in. Now, I'm not sure if it's actually against the rules. It's kind of a grey area bit or rule, I think, but I do think it is allowed in game. Now, you can also buy more shop supplies every day if you are doing daily shop runs on your alt, which can also increase the amount of wealth you gain on your account. And you control people with 2 accounts in various situations. Now let's cover some alt money making methods, and these are not all. There's a huge amount of alt money makers. These are just some decent examples. Now, I do know they are kind of mid to high level, but you can, generally speaking, the better alt money makers do require you to train that account a bit at least, and not something that requires level 20 stats. Although that is possible, the profit will be very low. So a decorated urn alt is a good one, requiring 76 plus crafting. You can also make urns at a lower level, but that would be a strong urn or just a cracked urn. You will be making less profit per urn and per hour. Now, making decorated urns is actually 1.5 to 2 mil GP per hour and is semi-AFK. The first phase of forming the urns is actually less AFK, but then firing the urns to finish them is very AFK. A Rorari alt is also a good option, being very AFK, requiring 81 Slayer and 70 plus combat stats, being around 1 to 3 mil GP per hour, collecting the keystones, which is very AFK as well. The better your gear, the more money you'll be making though. A woodcutting and fishing alt are also very good skilling alts. One requires 90 plus woodcutting for elder logs, which is around 600 to 800k GP per hour. Now that is not a lot, but do keep in mind it's super duper AFK. Fishing is also very good, and you can do that at level 68 plus fishing. You can do the fishing swarm at the deep sea fishing platform, being not a huge amount of money, but if you're using Sound of the Porters, it is very AFK. You can also fish rocktails or sailfish. A corrupted scorpion alt is something I might be making myself, requiring level 88 Slayer to kill and 90 plus combat stats to decently AFK, and preferably a vampirism aura and good stuff like that. I do have a separate guide on these on my channel. Now these can be 2.5 to 3.5 million GP per hour, which is still very good, and they weren't really affected by the mining and smithing rework. Now, a Godwatch Dungeon 1 boss AFKing out is also something you can do, which does require quite some training, being high combat stats, and preferably curses if you're going to be AFKing Kriara, but Krill can be AFK'd using a Vampirism Aura, which is, still pretty good money, especially if you get lucky, and I'd say it's around 1 to 3 mil GP per hour. A Daily Alt is also good, requiring various stats if you're doing Visvax, 50 rune crafting, if you're doing player-owned farms and selling the animals, 54 plus farming. You can do shop runs, you can do flipping, and it can be as much GP. Well, it's kind of random. I can't really put a amount there. And there's many more alt money making methods out there. So are alts worth it, and how good are they really? In my opinion, alts are worth it if you're willing to put in the work, especially if you have multiple that are doing something very, very AFK. Now let's say you're making 2 million GP per hour on your alts. You do that 1 hour a day. That would mean 60 million GP profit per month. Now, if you're buying bonds for the alt account, that will go down to 21 million profit per month. That is still very good for just doing something AFK for 1 hour a day on your alternative account while making money or skilling on your main account. Especially if you have 2 alts, that will just be doubled. And the alts are paying for itself by making money for themselves. So I'd say alts are worth it. But in the end, it's up to you if you enjoy making an alt, training it up, and making extra money with the alt. If you can't be bothered, you won't be missing out on too much money, unless you're comparing yourself with someone who has an army of alt accounts, not bots, alt accounts, and is farming money like a mad lad. Though high level PVM will still earn you more, but you could do high level PVM while AFKing on alts. But to summarize this video, if you enjoy making accounts and training them, and you enjoy making money on multiple accounts and you can stand multi-logging, then making alts to gain more profit or use for other benefits is definitely worth doing for you. I must say though, if you're a lower level or mid-level player, don't even bother training up an alt if you're only 1.5k total on your main, because this video is more geared towards people with a almost maxed account or just a very high level account already, not people that do not have that, because you're just going to end up burning yourself out from Runescape. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.